The recommended guidelines to the state and law enforcement officials on dealing with civilian protests was launched by President's Counsel Sarat Jaiman at the Human Rights Commission on Friday. Senior judicial officers, commander of the Sri Lanka Air Force, representatives from the police and the tri-forces, senior political figures and representatives from the civil society participated in the event. Chairperson of the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka, Justice Rohini Marasinghe, delivered the opening address.
Today, the Human Rights Commission is launching to the public at large these guidelines, as the title would correctly indicate, as recommended guidelines. The recommended guidelines must transform at some point as guidelines and become enforceable under Section 55 of the Police Ordinance. That is another process where the Human Rights Commission will call upon the representatives of the state, the police, the tri-forces, specialized groups such as BASL, Bar Association, the human rights activists, civil society, and the public at large to present their views.
During his speech, President's Counsel Sarat Jaiman commented about Section 120 of the Penal Code.
Essence of Section 120 is whether the words in question incite the people to commit acts of violence and disorder, and not whether their words are defamatory. Criticizing the government does not constitute an offence under Section 120. Can you remember, there was a young boy who created a particular hashtag asking particular person to go home. He was produced under Section 120. He never incited people to take arms for violence. So therefore, this is another classic example how when the government is criticized, you should not use this power.
Justice of the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka, His Lordship Yasantha Kodagoda, was the chief guest of the event.
In a functioning democracy, protests are not uncommon. Protests are in fact very natural. The state and her people can have divergent views. Groups of people may also have divergent views among them. People may want to openly express their opposition to certain policies and practices of the state. In fact, the existence of peaceful protests can be identified as a feature of a truly functioning democracy and a free society. To me, a protest is an external manifestation of a group of persons jointly exercising the fundamental right to freedom of speech and expression and the freedoms of peaceful assembly and association, coupled with political activism with one or more political or other goals. What is the golden thread, as I see, which surrounds the legal principles that govern the response of the police and the armed forces, is that the action must be lawful, carried out in good faith, and not be orchestrated by political motives towards the suppression of lawful protest or suppression of other forms of dissent which are expressed through lawful means. We must not allow these guidelines to remain recommended guidelines. In a country such as Sri Lanka, it is important that important legal principles contained in these guidelines be converted into enforceable